Allow me to share a story with you that I have read many, many years ago. I would attend multiple seminars and I will always buy a lot of books. And I read this book so many years ago. It was a very short story, but it had a huge impact. And always when I would read a story, I asked the question, how does this apply to my business? Or not just a story, any book. I want to know, how does this apply to my business? Now, having this knowledge and sharing with you in a way that you don't have to spend all the hours of reading that I have done just made sense to me. So, allow me to share the story as I remember it. This is a story of villagers that had to walk many kilometers every day to get to the closest source of water. Collecting water in buckets and carrying them all the way back to their village has always been a tedious and a very labor intensive task, but one they knew they had to do. There was never any question about that. They need the water. Now, some people complain daily about collecting the water, and others stop complaining altogether. Others never even questioned once the methods they used to collect the water. But like always, there is a group of villagers that have decided that even though they've seen generations before them collecting the water on a daily basis, they believe that there must be something else they can do about it. So, with no knowledge and no Google and no YouTube videos to them, they set out on an adventure to solve a problem, willing to figure it out along the way. They started to build a pipeline from the local water source towards their village. This took a lot of time and a lot of planning. They actually struggled at first to find people who were willing to buy into their vision, and the fact that none of them really know how to do it. But through trial and error, they started, and with every mistake they made, they learned something new. Now, many people pass them by on a daily basis, telling them that they were wasting their time with this pipeline idea and rather should do what other people do: go and collect the water that you need and get on with it. So, some people who were part of the pipeline team stopped very early on as the daily naggers got to them, and then they decided to give up altogether because they didn't want to look like a fool. Some of the other members started to feel that if they can go and build their pipeline in a different area using a different technique, it would be better. So they left this initial group, moved to another area, and started over. The initial group were adamant that it was not about where the pipeline was built, but more about getting the job done. So they felt to start over with a different technique will mean that all the effort that I've put in until now was completely wasted. Finally, the pipeline was completed, and still some of the villagers laughed at the pipeline team as the water that ran through was, according to them, not strong enough. But the initial team with a vision of having continually running water knew that it was not about how strong the water ran, but the fact that the water ran continually. Even though the breakaway team eventually also succeeded in completing their pipeline, the first team still had the advantage on their side. Their water were filling up the tanks, and soon they had to start working on bigger storage ideas. They were forever ahead of the breakaway team. Now, there's a couple of lessons that I can learn from this for my business today. So allow me to point out a couple that comes to mind. Number one, start. Don't wait for anyone else to agree with a dream in your heart. It will only need to make sense to you. Make sure you know exactly what your goals are and keep that constantly in your mind. Lesson number two. Every time you start over and try to build a new pipeline in the newest, hottest venture in town, you start from scratch. Starting over in a new plan will cause you to start from zero every time. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot change the building plan that you currently have, because here you will never start from zero. Number three, don't get distracted by the logic thinkers that will pass you by. You need to have a thick skin, and sometimes you need to put your earphones in and listen to your own drive. Point number four, No matter how long it takes, the pipeline will work. If it has worked for one, it will work for many. Make sure you understand all the possibilities in your pipeline and utilize every single drop of water available to you. After the initial pipeline was laid down, it was easy to start adding splits and divert the water to others in the area without really affecting the flow. And my final point is after you have successfully utilized all the possibilities within your current pipeline and you have accessed all the water available to you, I think now it would be the time that you can start looking at building an additional pipeline from another source. But before you do that, you want to be very skilled because with great skill comes more opportunities to build better and faster than ever before. My advice to you is make sure you understand your opportunity. Ask as many questions until you are well informed. Don't give up. If you don't understand the initial explanation, ask somebody else to explain it to you. Sometimes, and most of the times in my life, it happened the little aha moment when somebody else explained the same concept to me. Make sure you understand that the opportunity is available to everybody. A well structured business opportunity is not designed for the select few or just for the one who comes first. Everybody can accomplish on every level. And before you move on to a different trade, become a master at what you do.